Claude can now create a week's worth of carousels in minutes, but so can everyone else. As more people start using AI, social media is turning into a sea of sameness. And people are trying to solve this problem by making their carousels even more visually rich before figuring out their messaging, and that is the wrong order of operations. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you end-to-end carousel automation system that helps you build trust, establish authority, attract more clients, and as a result, grow your business. What we are building today is a repeatable, consistent, fast carousel system that allows you to rise above the sea of sameness. So the entire system is basically a 6-step process. First, we are going to set up our workspace, that is our folder structure. Then we are going to write our content brief, that is going to include our positioning, messaging, our value proposition, who we are trying to reach. And then we are going to map out our entire carousel flow from the cover to all the way to the end, all the slides, so we can see them in one shot. And then we are going to build a design system to be able to create consistent, repeatable carousels. I also like the step where we can essentially test different styling options, so we can always find a better option. And at the very end, we are going to be spending a special amount of time to make sure our cover slide, which is the hook itself, and then make it really, really visually rich and eye-catching, because if we cannot get people past our cover, the rest of the slides doesn't matter. So it's really the cover itself is the carrying 80% of the work. Before we generate a single file, it is very, very important that we set up our project folder structure properly. This kind of directory, this kind of folder structure is going to allow us to stay organized, because during the process, Claude is going to be generating hundreds of files and want to make sure that it is putting it under the right folder structure. That way we can essentially keep track of everything. On the second step, we are going to create our content brief. This is where we are going to get crystal clear on our audience, the topics that we are going to be covering, the pain we are promising to solve, the desired outcome, positioning, messaging, differentiation, before we get into any visual conversation essentially. Because this content brief is going to be the essentially foundation of everything we are going to be generating downstream. On our third step, we are going to map our entire carousel flow. That way we can see everything that is happening on our hook slide, the pain definition, what are the solution steps that we'll be walking our viewers through, what is the take-home message, the payoff, and any kind of call to action we'll be adding at the end of our slides. On step 4, we are going to start building our design system. That is going to include our branding, our visual choices, the basic layout rules. That way, everything we are going to be generating from this point on can essentially follow the same branding rules and start essentially developing this consistent design language. On step 5, we are going to start testing different visual styles. Notice that the messaging is the same with different visual styling options. This way we can essentially explore and find out what is the best visual style that represents our brand the best, that is the most suitable for this carousel, without locking ourselves in the first design option Claude creates for us. On the 6th and the final step, we are going to engineer our cover to be the most eye-catching, scroll-stopping cover that we can create. To be able to do that, we'll go beyond Claude, start using Higgs-built MCP, because the reality is cover slide carries the 80% of the work. If we cannot make people go past our cover, rest of the slides, rest of the carousel doesn't matter. That's why we need to pay closer attention in here and go above and beyond the Claude. If you like to follow along, I've included all the workflows, prompts, and skills that I'll be using in this video in the description below. You can download the entire system and start building your own carousel automation system for your business. Before we generate anything, we need a space for everything to live and stay organized. But instead of creating this folder structure by ourselves, we are going to automate this and make Claude to create this entire folder structure for us. And I'm going to copy this entire prompt. Okay, Claude built everything just like we specified. You go to the carousel project, every folder is here. Now we are at the second step. We are going to create our content brief. And this is going to be the foundation of everything. This is where we are getting crystal clear on who is this for, what transformation we are promising, what is the end result. This is the brief that is going to be guiding the entire carousel. And this is the brief that is going to allow us to essentially reach to high signal content as opposed to creating more noise on social media. Most people accept the first draft, but we are not going to do that. As part of step 2, we are going to make Claude to self-critic itself, which that means is we are going to be using loop prompting. So it's going to create the first draft, then it's going to self-critic itself from different point of views, and it's going to repeat this a couple of more times. We can specify exactly how many times we want to go through this loop. We can say do 3 passes before it essentially gives us the final draft for our approval. So this is the prompt I'm going to be using for the step 2. Before you send this prompt to the Claude, you can either fill out the audience, topic, pain point, desired outcomes, those like a critical key information by yourself, or you can essentially give Claude a basic like explanation, just essentially brain dump your ideas, and if Claude can essentially decide who is your audience, what is the right topic selection, the pain point, the desired outcome, do that kind of work for you. And then Claude is going to essentially map out all the basic content information into a carousel structure. It's going to explore different hook archetypes that are proven on social media that works. It's going to be self-scoring itself while it is, running the self-improvement loops. And then, it's going to follow these basic design constraints. You can always go there and tweak them based on your needs. This is like what I like. 1 idea per slide, 1 headline per slide. It's going to be essentially running the review loop, explain what it's changing, and it's going to give you the final content brief that hopefully is essentially almost like a 80%, 90% dash. For the transcript, I just went to YouTube and grabbed Claude Sanchez's video. So this is going to be essentially the core material. I'm just going to paste this in here. Let's see what Claude produced. So you can see that it created its content brief, decided who the right audience is, the topic, pain points, desired outcomes, the call to action, and then essentially it selected the hook, explain why this hook works best. It is essentially giving you a carousel structure. This is telling you how it's going to be laying it out. And you can always say that, okay, I want you to make the carousel structure maybe 10 step, 4 step, 3 step, right? You don't have to do like a 5 step all the time, but it's telling you like what each carousel slide is going to include basically. And then this is where it is self-improving itself. It is running the pass 1, pass 2, pass 3. And then in here, it's giving you different hook options, scoring itself, and it's kind of like a deciding. That's why it's saying this one should work best, but you can always choose to use a different one. On step 3, we are going to map out the entire carousel in a single shot. That way we can see the entire flow. At this point, we are happy with our content brief. So we are telling Claude to do not change the content brief. We are just saying it to create a single HTML page with all the carousel slides in a grid so that we can see the entire flow. Claude essentially created our entire bare bone carousel structure where we can essentially see the entire narrative flow, the headline, the text itself. This is where we should be typically going and then tweaking all these headlines and the text itself, making sure everything is essentially all the messaging, all the definitions, terms, language is exactly the way you want. So this is where you'll be essentially giving Claude instructions on slide 3, change this, on slide 4, keep that, until all the bare bones of the messaging, the value is there, because this is the content itself, right? All the other visual activities we are going to be doing, we are doing them for the sake of making our carousels more engaging, more visually rich, more eye-catching, and more essentially fun to consume. During step 3, we want to make sure to do enough revisions that all the text content is exactly the way we want. Because on step 4, we are going to start talking about what are the fixed rules, fixed design rules, and what are the variable elements that will be changing at every carousel. Okay, so how do you build design systems? So you basically have 3 options. Option 1 is for people, for small, medium businesses. You already have a website, you already have branding, brand guidelines. All you need to do is feed that into Claude Design. It's going to turn it into a design.md file that you can feed it into Claude. So the Claude is going to match all the carousels to your existing branding. The other option is, let's say that you are still in an exploration stage. So you can go to Pinterest, social media, start collecting a bunch of different essentially interesting graphics, and then put them into Claude, into ChatGPT, find the common patterns, and then ask it to turn into a design guidelines and design.md file that you can feed it into Claude for all the carousels to follow. For this experiment, my preferred option is going to this website. It's called design.md, and then using essentially very detailed, already developed brand guidelines of big brands that you can have an access for free. They are offering all these big brands, brand guidelines, design guidelines. Let's say that you love Apple's minimalist, sleek design. So just go to Apple, and then you can see that it's essentially giving you access to all the typography, the colors, the spacing, all the rules. All you have to do is essentially click on this button, paste it into Claude, and it's going to turn it into a design.md file that you can use over and over again in your own carousels. So this is the prompt we are going to be using at step 4. Depending on the option you want to go with, you want to rephrase this first sentence based on your direction. I'm going to change this and then ask Claude to use the Apple's design guidelines. So it can create all these layout, structure, font hierarchy, and etc. everything based on Apple already perfected pretty much. And it's going to give me essentially one final output with the final .design.md file that I can use over and over again in my carousels. If you go with another option, essentially maybe you say that I don't have any design guidelines yet. I don't want to copy Apple's design. I want to recreate my own from scratch. So this is where I essentially say that I'm giving you a bunch of reference images. I want you to analyze them and create the layout structure, the font hierarchy, etc. colors. You can always play with the rules in here the way you want. These are basically the good rule of thumb, and it's going to give you one final output with the design guidelines. Or let's say that you already have a brand guidelines. You can paste it in the prompt, or you can essentially put the link of your website that it can grab everything from there. I'll go to get design.md, copy the link to the Apple's design guidelines, and I'm going to tweak this first sentence, use this link to have an access to Apple's design guidelines, and that's pretty much it. Hit enter. So this is the part we want to do our first pass and see how that Apple reference design guidelines are working on our current carousels. I want you to create all the HTML carousel slides based on the Apple reference design.md file that you created. Alright, Claude went ahead, it generated all the carousel slides based on the Apple's design guidelines. It also created a master gallery. Let's go check. This is where we started. Here is the master gallery with all the carousels, Apple's design guidelines applied. You can see that there's a nice consistency in terms of color, typography, alignments. You can always direct Claude to change the font size, bring them closer, put it further apart. I like that there's a nice empty space in the middle. This is where you can start essentially putting some diagrams, additional images. Okay, at step 5, now we have some sort of essentially base design guidelines, right? What we want to do is we want to test different design styles. We already have some sort of a general rules, but we want to see what are the other options. Okay, I went back to get design.md, got the 3 more design guidelines, Airbnb, BMW, Miro, copy the links, paste it in here. So I'm just going to essentially dictate. I want to test 3 more design styles, generate the master gallery based on these 3 design options. All right, so now you can see Claude generated all the design options per Airbnb's, BMW's, and the Miro's design styles. So now you can essentially see how each style is affecting the carousel's overall look. I think it's pretty nice, right? To be able to so fast, quickly test these operations. Just imagine how much time this would take for you to make this in Canva. Can't even imagine. Okay, we have 4 options, right? That is more than enough. And we want Claude to essentially go and self-critique itself and then improve it a couple of times and then just come up with a final design, right? So in order to be able to do that, we want to use the loop prompting, and then so it's going to be basically self-evaluating itself based on these criterias. You can always tweak these criterias based on your needs. And then this is the prompt that is going to essentially allow us to go through each one of these essentially criterias and let Claude to do its own self-evaluation a couple of times before it presents us the final option. So let's just copy and paste this prompt and see what kind of essentially conclusion Claude is going to come up with. All right, Claude ran the readability test, system compliance test, scroll stopping potential, and designed these carousels. Let's go check the overall. So this is what it come up with, right? But you can start understanding like how you can essentially start getting Claude to self-evaluate and start testing a bunch of different options very efficiently. And that is the essentially end of step 5, where we are saying don't essentially just be okay with the first design, test a couple of alternatives, and then make Claude to essentially self-evaluate, self-correct to get the best results. All right, we're at step 6. Now we are going to be working specifically on our cover, right? This is where we are essentially trying to make people stop scrolling, look at our cover, and make that split-second decision whether they are going to read our carousel or just keep scrolling, right? So in order to do that, we will essentially go beyond this Claude and start working with the Higgs-built MCP through Claude to be able to generate some sort of eye-catching image. Step 6, the workflow. Okay, so when it comes to carousel hooks, you got two things, right? You have the headline, the text hook itself, and you have the visual hook. So I'm already going to give you essentially a hook file that has a bunch of like a hook archetypes and different hook options that you can generate through Claude. So I'm going to skip this step, and because you can just use that file to test it yourself, I'll just go straight to essentially Higgs-built and then generate the most eye-catching image as possible for this topic, and then try to kind of like apply it on the first slide and see what we can come up with. So this is the prompt we are going to be using to engineer the cover. We are pretty much telling Claude to go and use the Higgs-built MCP and ChatGPT's image generator. In order to do that, you need to have a paid subscription to Higgs-built MCP and connect it to your Claude. So let's go to the prompt. It's essentially saying that keep everything as is, right? All the branding, design guidelines, the hook is essentially we are only working on the cover itself. We are saying that the cover is the advertisement for the carousel, which is true. And then this is kind of like the hook options we are giving, and different angles, how it can essentially score itself. What I'm going to do is, so I'm going to copy this whole thing. You can just read through the entire prompt. I'll paste it into Claude, okay? I want to do one more thing. So I found an image. Let's see if we can take a look at it. Yeah, which is this, right? It's kind of like a striking image. It's a weird angle. She's sitting weird. There's like some business outfit, but not quiet. So this could be an essentially interesting reference image. I think that is eye-catching by itself. It can also start having a lot of white space around it to put the text. So I'm going to say use the attach reference image. So let's just recap. I gave Claude the step 6 prompt. I gave a reference image. It looked at the reference image, said that, okay, this visual direction is great for the topic, and it went to Higgs-built. It created multiple options. The option A got the highest score. You can see it in here. And then I said, okay, let's just use the option A and use it as a full bleed. It went ahead and created this cover. I said, looking great, perfect. Then I went ahead and then for the sake of time, I just went ahead and found 8 more stock images on the internet. You can recreate them at Higgs-built, just like the cover, or use your own visual assets. These are all like basically screenshots. I told Claude to essentially crop them so that they can essentially fit it into the middle of the carousels. It did that, and you can see it in here. Each image is equally proportionally cropped, placed on the each slide. And I also asked it to create a master gallery where I can start seeing the entire flow of the carousel slides all together. So the last step is basically quality control and exporting stage. This is where I'm essentially using this prompt in order to do the final quality control check. If each slide passed the quality control criteria, Claude is going to start exporting them. And Claude is telling me quality assurance, quality control review is complete. These slides passed. There's a warning at the slide 8, and there's some sort of like a problem at the slide 9. We can obviously address these very easily. And let's see what it had exported basically. So we'll go to from the HTML. This is where we are going to the PNGs. So Claude exported all the slides. And remember that because Claude is generating these slides from HTML, you can see that there's some issue, right? You can see the scroll bars in here. There's like this weird gap there. So there's two solutions to address this. You can just go to Canva and then just put every single one of them and then to the correct the carousel size and then re-export them, or through another software like Photoshop, InDesign, or you can ask Claude to essentially fix this. It may take a couple of rounds to address these issues, but I think the important part is this, right? This process is right now very detailed, but once you nail the process, it is going to become essentially faster and faster. So this was everything I've been doing in here. Never done it, tested all the prompts, everything first time with you, and then you can kind of understand some of the essentially roadblocks that are happening. But the next time I do, you can even ask Claude to essentially, what are the issues, what are the roadblocks, pitfalls that cause these delays along the way, and it can essentially start improving itself, create a Claude.md file, and the next time you make carousels, you are pretty much essentially, you can easily avoid those pitfalls. So that's it. This is the full workflow of how you can essentially go from random ideas to a final polished carousels and automate the whole process. So the more and the more you do this, right, technically you'll start skipping the step 4 and step 5, because by that time you already kind of nailed your design system. You'll be spending most of your time at clarifying your messaging and working on your cover basically to make it as eye-catching as possible. So this is the whole system. If you want all the skills and the prompts that I used in this demo, just go to the link in the YouTube description. You can download them and start applying to your business.